27 items stolen from Africa by Britain. Throughout history, many conquerors or colonizers have taken treasures back to their homelands as part of their expansions. Sometimes it was done to fund their wars. Other times, these items were just considered novelties. Regrettably, many of these objects were lost or ruined. For example, thousands of mummies were unwrapped for entertainment at parties in 19th century England. But other items found their way from one owner to the next until landing in a museum. Though acquired through questionable methods, these cultural treasures remain on display in foreign lands hundreds and thousands of years after their thefts. Here are 27 items stolen from Africa by Britain. 27. Benin bronzes. The Benin bronzes, which are actually made of brass, are a kingdom of Benin, which is modern-day Nigeria, proudly boasted bronze sculptures dating back to the 13th century. However, during the Benin expedition of 1987, the British stole most of them. More than 200 of these sculptures found a house in the British Museum. They are a window into the African art of those times, and it's just unfair that the locals have to travel to London if they want to take a look at the scriptures. 26. Rosetta Stone. Made of granodiorite, the Rosetta Stone has writing inscribed on it in 3 different Egyptian languages and dates back to 196 BC. It was acquired from Egypt by Napoleon Bonaparte and from him by the British when they defeated the Frenchman's army during the early 1800s. 25. Magdala treasures. The Magdala treasures include an 18th century gold crown and a royal wedding dress, taken from Ethiopia by the British Army in 1868. Historians say 15 elephants and 200 mules were needed to cart away all the loot from Magdala, Emperor Tewodros II's northern citadel capital. The British raided Magdala in protest at the detention of its consul when relations between the two powers deteriorated. The treasures were later deposited at the UK's museum. The crown, admired for its silver and copper filigree designs and religious embossed images, and royal wedding dress are significant symbols of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. 24. Zimbabwe bird. A soapstone sculpture of a fish eagle is Zimbabwe's main national emblem. 8 of the Zimbabwe birds were looted from the ruins of an ancient city. Only 8 of the birds were ever recovered. They stood on the walls and monoliths of the ancient city, built between the 12th and 15th centuries by the ancestors of the Shona people. 7 of the carvings are in Zimbabwe since 2003, when the bottom section of one was returned by Germany. The 8th remains in the old bedroom of 19th century British imperialist Cecil Rhodes, whose home in the South African city of Cape Town is now a museum. 23. Great Star of Africa diamond. Amongst many prized possessions of the Queen, the Great Star of Africa diamond clearly stands out. It is the world's largest diamond and weighs around 530 carats. Estimated to be worth around $400 million US, the Great Star of Africa was mined in South Africa in 1905. According to many historians from Africa, the jewel was mined in 1905 and was presented to Edward VII, and they claim that the diamond was rather stolen or looted by the British government during their reign as colonists. The Great Star of Africa is currently in the Queen's scepter. 22. The Tomb of Tutankhamun. Dating back some 3,300 years to Egypt's New Kingdom, the tomb of King Tut was discovered in 1922 by a team of archaeologists led by Howard Carter, a British Egyptologist. Although it was the smallest royal tomb found in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, it was the most intact. Containing a treasure trove of thousands of ancient Egyptian objects, including an iron dagger made from a meteorite and an elaborate funerary mask, the tomb revealed to the modern world the sheer wealth that ancient Egyptian pharaohs took with them to the grave. 21. Old Owen choppers. Dating back between 2.5 and 1.2 million years ago, Old Owen chopper tools were created by ancient humans known as Homo habilis for chopping, cutting, and scraping. Originally discovered at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania in the 1930s, the primitive objects are considered one of the oldest stone tools in existence. Their discovery, along with many others at Olduvai Gorge, helped to establish the fact that the first humans evolved in Africa. 20. The Brass Head of Ife. Unearthed at Ife in Nigeria in 1938, the brass head is one of 18 copper alloy sculptures that challenged Western conceptions of African art. Created during the 14th or 15th centuries the intricate and naturalistic features of the head displayed a sophistication of craftsmanship that is so unique in African art that it astonished historians across the world. Believed to represent a king of the West African kingdom of Ife, the remarkable piece of brass casting is seen as one of the highest achievements of African art and culture, which is now in a Britain museum. 19. Nok terracottas. South of the Sahara, the earliest known sculptures come from the Nok culture, a population that thrived for 2,000 years from 1,500 BC to 500 AD in what is now modern-day Nigeria. Dating back to the early Iron Age, the Nok people were famous for their terracotta sculptures that have often been discovered in fragments due to erosion. The terracotta usually depict the head of a man or woman, with intricate detail given to their hair. 18. Bronze Head of Queen Idea. The bronze head of Queen Idea is a commemorative bronze head from medieval Benin that probably represents Idea, mother of Oba Esegi, made during the early 16th century at the Benin court. Many Benin works of art entered the European art market after the Benin expedition of 1897-4. Cast bronze heads of the Queen are known and are currently in the collections of the British Museum in London. 17. 9th century Igbo Ukwu bronze ceremonial staff head. Igbo Ukwu is notable for 3 archaeological sites, where excavations have found bronze artifacts from a highly sophisticated bronze metalworking culture dating to 9th century AD and centuries before other known bronzes of the region. The first, called Igbo Isaiah, was uncovered in 1938 by Isaiah Anozi, a local villager, who found the bronze works while digging beside his home. 5 bronze artifacts from the original excavation are now in the British Museum's collection. 16. The Apapa Hoard. The Apapa Hoard is an important collection of medieval bronze jewelry found at Apapa near Lagos, Nigeria. Dating to the early 16th century, the hoard has been part of the British Museum's collection since 1930. Items from the treasure consist entirely of bronze jewelry. They include a pair of wire bracelets, 2 bracelets designed in the form of interlocking animals, 2 staff mounts with pendant bells, 2 ring-shaped armlets, a group of bells, a ring with cascables, and a breastplate in the shape of a ram's head with pendant bells. The latter object is the most prestigious item from the hoard and is one of the finest cast bronzes ever found in southern Nigeria, which is now owned by the British. 15. Congo Ivories. Congo ivory is one of the finest sculptural works produced by the people of the West Central Africa's Lower Congo region. In the Congo Kingdom, ivory was a precious commodity that was strictly controlled by chiefs and kings, who commissioned sculptors to produce fine ivory sculptures for their personal and courtly use. Congo elephants and other ivory sculptures from this period are in the British Museum, many of them made in Sierra Leone and Benin in the 15th and 16th centuries. 14. Akan Drum. The Akan drum is a drum that was made in West Africa and was later found in the colony of Virginia in North America. It is now the oldest African-American object in the British Museum and possibly the oldest surviving anywhere. The drum is a reminder of all 3 continents' involvement in the estimated 12 million people transported across the Atlantic Ocean as part of the transatlantic slave trade. 13. Luzira Head. The Luzira head, locally known as the Mpanga head, is the name of a terracotta head found at Luzira, Uganda. Estimated to be about 1,000 years old, and one of the oldest sub-Saharan sculptures yet discovered in Africa. Since 1931, it has been part of the British Museum's ethnographic collection. 12. Akan gold weights. Akan gold weights, locally known as Ramu, are weights made of brass used as a measuring system by the Akan people of West Africa, particularly for weigh and fair trade arrangements with one another. The status of a man increased significantly if he owned a complete set of weights. Complete small sets of weights were gifts to newly wedded men. This ensured that he would be able to enter the merchant trade respectably and successfully. 11. Chiwara. A chiwara is a ritual object representing an antelope, used by the Bambara ethnic group in Mali. The Chiwara Initiation Society uses Chiwara masks, as well as dances and rituals associated primarily with agriculture, to teach young Bamana men social values as well as agricultural techniques, which is now part of the British Museum's collection. 10. Benin Ivory Mask. Benin Ivory Mask of the Queen Mother idea, a 16th century ivory, iron, and copper. One of 4 related ivory pendant masks among the prized regalia of the Oba of Benin, taken by the British during the Benin expedition of 1897. 9. Ndop of King Mishi. Presently at Brooklyn Museum. Ndops are royal memorial portraits carved by the Cuba people of Central Africa. They are not naturalistic portrayals, but are intended as representations of the king's spirit and as an encapsulation of the principle of kingship. 8. Sekemka statue. The statue of Sekemka caused uproar in 2016 after leaving Britain to an unknown destination that later turned out to be America, and according to British documents, the British Museum of Northampton sold it to an unknown buyer in July 2014. The museum sold the 4,500-year-old limestone statue at an auction for GBP 16 million, allegedly to develop the museum. With the uproar that accompanied the sale of the statue and the Egyptian and British campaigns against its sale, the buyer decided not to reveal his or her identity or the place where the statue would be moved. 7. Karduch of King Amenhotep I. Originally exhibited at the Open Museum of the Ancient Temple of Karnak in the city of Luxor, it was stolen and smuggled out of the country to the United Kingdom. The Egyptian government fought so hard and finally recovered this item from Britain. 6. Brass cockerel. During the British expedition to Benin city of Edo in 1897, objects made of brass, ivory, coral, and wood were looted by British soldiers from the royal palace, its storerooms, and compounds. Some of these objects were sold or exchanged on the coast. However, many were brought to the UK where they were sold through private auction. 5. 12 brass plaques. The Horniman Museum's collection of artifacts from the ancient kingdom of Benin includes 12 brass plaques, ceremonial objects, and a key to the king's palace. A British museum says it will return dozens of artifacts to the Nigerian government that were taken forcibly more than a century ago, where the 12 brass plaques happens to be one of them. 4. Head of an Oba sculpted in bronze. This bronze head is as controversial as it is magnificent. It was a trophy of empire, taken from a royal shrine by Ralph Locke during the raid of Benin in 1897 by the British. The Edo people of Benin, now part of modern Nigeria, ruled much of West Africa when the Portuguese arrived there in the 15th century. The bronze head would have been owned by an Oba or king of Benin. They were traditionally made in the royal foundry to commemorate a king's predecessor. 3. Giant tusks of Benin. Benin ancestral altar tusks were carved with registers of relief figures, animals, and motifs. In the center of this tusk are the Oba, also known as the king and his attendants. The Oba is shown with the legs of a mudfish, emphasizing his divine powers of transformation and survival. These kinds of images conveyed a coded message that was intended more for the ancestors than for the relatively few living people who were allowed to view the altars. Some altar tusks were supported by cast copper alloy heads representing an Oba. All this was taken by British soldiers. 2. Ngaji god. The Pokomo people of Kenya's Tana River Valley once worshipped a god represented on Earth by an awe-inspiring drum whose was named Ngaji. The theft of the Ngaji by British colonial officers is a story well known among the eldest Pokomo. The British Museum, too, acknowledges the Ngaji was confiscated before being donated to its collections in 1908. The museum also acknowledges a request by the Pokomo community for its return. 1. Asante gold. Asante's golden trophy head and swords, which are displayed in the Wallace collection. This spectacular piece of the Asante regalia looted by the British from Ghana has been described by facts as the largest gold work known from Ashanti or indeed from anywhere in Africa outside Egypt. All these treasures are properties owned by African countries, which were stolen by British soldiers during colonization and conflict and taken to Britain museums. Thanks for watching.